What is the creepiest thing you have seen a person do? I was shopping in a women's clothing store a few years ago and noticed a guy a few feet away from me also browsing through the racks. At one point I noticed some weird motion from him in my peripheral vision and turned to see him methodically wiping his dick on each piece of clothing. I immediately contacted the manager and called 911, and now all purchased clothing gets washed immediately after I bring it home. No exceptions. Didn't see it, but my college dorm roommate was showering in the common bathroom. When he looked up and saw a phone recording him inside, he immediately opened the stall door, ran after the guy totally naked, and shouted at me I was in our room to come help. Turned out one of the dormers had been filming him couple times. The case reached the university tribunal that led to the creep's dismissal. I was going home after seeing my boyfriend at the time. It's late at night, roads are clear. I pull up to a stoplight on the edge of town. I'm talking in the rear view mirror. I can see city, but through the windshield there's nothing but cornfields. I see movement out of the corner of my eye and am expecting a deer, but I realize I'm looking at a person hunched over holding a crowbar, clearly trying not to be seen. I ran that red light and got out of there as fast as I could. I got into my car to go to work at like 5 a.m. When I start to reverse, I see a guy in all black crawling on all fours toward my car from the street. I fucking floored it and took off. I used to work at the courthouse many years ago. We still had our cases in printed form like books. Anyway, this was a criminal court, so we had those folders with all the info about the case. This particular case was a murder case. 2 or 3 people murdered a guy in a small farm, dumped the body in a ditch. The corpse was found days later, so it was not only starting to rot, it had been found by vermins and small game. As a result, the body had no eyes, no lips, no ears you can imagine. In Brazil, criminal cases like this are public accessible, so you could go to the courthouse and ask to see the case files. That particular day, one guy came and asked to see these files. He went straight for the forensic photos and just stared at that gruesome corpse for many minutes. Turns out it was his dad. We had to tell him we had to do something with the case files or else he'd probably just stay there all morning. Since English is not my first language, I lack words to appropriately transmit the awkwardness of that experience, but I think you can get the idea. One of my employees sent me a picture of a young woman bending over to reach into the cooler. A, why would you do that? B, why would then decide to send that picture to your boss with a bunch of drooling emojis? Just no. One time a man followed me around the mall. He was quite sneaky about it, and had I not been paying attention, I may not have even noticed. He would wait on the bench outside of the stores, until my 4th store I went into he was inside as well, but made sure to stay across the room in catty corner to where I was. He was on his phone the whole time, and my gut was screaming at me to not go out to my car alone. I exited that store and found a security guard to walk me out. On the way out of the mall, the guard told me I did the right thing cause that man followed me until he saw me approach the guard. Don't know what his intentions were, but I am certain they were not good. I went on a singular date with a very mentally unstable person. Had done a decent job of pretending to be somewhat normal leading up to the date, but throughout the few hours I spent with him he slowly started to unravel. He started revealing to me about how he'd been arrested, recently got out of jail, how he hated his entire family. Then the real icing on the cake was me telling him I didn't really know how to make southern food because I wased from the south, to which he said, "Y'all learn," very sternly. Then he asked if I was okay with sleeping on an air mattress with him, because he wanted me to come over and cook for him. Nope, the fuck away from that. Seen? Not sure. But my ex-wife has had stalkers. The story on one of them took the cake. Her fam had a summer home in Maine, in the middle of the woods, overlooking the ocean. The back patio has huge glass window doors that has a full view of the ocean, the woods. It's really beautiful during the day. During the night, however, it was fucking scary. It's dark, you couldn't see outside, but the outside could see you. So she told me one night she was home alone. She kept getting calls, this was the late 90s, telling her, "Whitney, I can see you, this fucking creep," would even describe what she was wearing, all that shit. She turned off the lights, ran upstairs with a knife. She still didn't figure out who he was. Not me, but my mom. We used to live in an area with a lot of just empty road. Like the kind where you can go 2 or 3 miles of no houses and just woods on both sides and occasionally some farmland. My mom was coming home from a friend's house or something, and was driving through one of these empty areas. Legit, it has a bar, and that's it, when she comes across a car that was sitting abandoned on the side of the road, still on with the driver door open and keys in ignition. Mom rolls down window and calls out to see if maybe someone is hurt or in the woods peeing. No response. So she keeps driving. When maybe a mile down the road she sees another car backed into the woods and sees one of those bulky yellow flashlights sitting in the middle of the road with its beam pointing straight up and turned on. It gave my mom a bad feeling, so she sped around the flashlight and rushed home. I woke up at 5 am to my friend sitting on the floor directly next to my bed and staring at my sleeping face with no valid explanation. Kicked them right out because absolutely not, and it wasn't even like as a joke. That would've made me feel better, but no. Saw a woman sitting in a ditch next to the road around midnight in an all-white nightgown, with long dark stringy hair, looked almost exactly like the girl from The Grudge. She was reaching out towards the road yelling. It freaked me out, because I'd never seen anything paranormal, but it felt paranormal, so I drove past her quickly. Then I started to feel bad, like maybe she was hurt, or something, so I turned around and went back and asked her if she needed help, but she kept mumbling something about a cat. I figured she was just super high, so I decided to leave, but as I drove off I could hear her yelling, "No, please come back." So I drove down to the nearest gas station and called the police. I don't know what happened after that, but it was definitely super creepy. I will say she wasn't covered in blood or bruises that I could see, and she didn't look hurt, she just looked strung out. I don't know if I did the right thing or not, but I did what I felt comfortable doing. It got kinda creepy when we got to know that one of our neighbors was a murderer. He was a friendly man in public actually, not someone that you'd expect to be an ice-cold killer. We got to know about it when the police came and digged up the bodies in his yard. He usually took hookers from the city to the village, and then he strangled them. But he was as a person never creepy, never anyone that you'd not trust or that you'd suspect of doing anything wrong at all. And that makes it even worse. Such people are around in society and you don't see them as bad guys because you don't know what they are hiding. Saw a middle-aged guy sniffing the swings in a playground. I spent the last hours trying to stop the memory of my father and his brother torturing animals for fun in our front yard, actually competing to be the most gruesome possible and laughing their ass off. That guy is a really sick person. Saw some kids, around the age of 10 maybe, throwing rocks at some toads in a blonde and laughing about it when their guts bursted out. Told them to stop and they looked at me with a genuinely confused expression as if, why would hurting animals like that be wrong at all? It just gave me the creeps and I wonder what kind of persons they are now. A middle-aged guy wanted me to take my pants off in the park when I was 18. I just thought he was friendly when he touched my knee. Turns out that wasn't the case, and I noped the hell out of that situation pretty fast. I saw that video of that guy eating the severed human leg he found on the side of the road. That was pretty creepy. When I was around 14, a woman about 50-60 years old who was known throughout my neighborhood as being creepy looking through windows, digging through trash, etc. approached my younger brother and I while we were walking home from a neighbor's house about a block away. She asked us if we wanted to come to her house at midnight for a laser tag party with her and her kids, not all that odd except for her huge forced smile, and the fact that this party was at midnight when we had school the next day. Discovered a few weeks later that the kids she mentioned were the 5-6 children she adopted all at once. None of them were very well adjusted, and were bullies to the other kids on the street. We also saw all the kids being taken away in police cars, whatever that was about. I've had a pretty lucky life. Worst I've seen is a 35-year-old man admitting he came to my church solely to ask my newly 18-year-old sister to be his girlfriend. He had already asked me 29. But I was 18 when he asked, my sister 31, 17 or so when he asked, and my other little sister 21, 20 when he asked and been rejected. He had known our family since my littlest sister was an infant. He told her she'd blossomed into a woman. He's the only person the pastor my father has told to leave our church and not come back.